Will any Chelsea player ever be fit for an entire season? Are Borussia Dortmund going to save us from our Disasi disaster? And a candid interview with Nazar Kinsella gives us some insight on the goalkeeping and centre-back situation. Welcome, Blue Believers, to another episode of the Stamford Sink, where we are syncing up with everything Chelsea FC. And we're Chelsea fans, so that means we're going to talk about injuries and centre-backs, because that's basically 40, 50, 60% of everything that we're talking about at the moment, isn't it? Injuries, of course, being the big ones. So, Enzo Fernandez has withdrawn from the Argentina squad because he picked up an injury on international duty. Right, so it is the issue is synovitis in his knee. And much like how to be a Chelsea fan these days you need to have a degree in finance, apparently you need some sort of medical degree as well. So I have been looking up this particular injury to try and give myself some copium about how long it might affect him. And the truth is, it could be fine and it might not be fine. So synovitis, in the case of Enzo Fernandez, is an inflammation of the knee, and like I say, in his case in particular, has probably been caused by overuse. Brilliant. Cole Palmer is obviously out with his groin injury because of overuse, and this injury for Enzo Fernandez, it can be for other reasons, but overuse is one of the big reasons that it can happen. And Enzo Fernandez has played a ridiculous amount of football. So basically, this could be a case of 2 to 3 weeks. This could be a case of he's back for the Nottingham Forest game, or he could be out for months. So we're literally, sat on the precipice of another potentially long-term injury with Enzo Fernandez. And look, I've been doing some stories recently about Enzo Fernandez, and there's more stories about Real Madrid being interested in him and us slapping £100 million price tag on him and whatever. But at the end of the day, we need him in our team for this season. So speculation aside about what might happen with him at the end of the season, losing him right now for another extended period would be bad, because we are just struggling so much. Our midfield is starting to look so thin. At the start of the season, it looked good. The depth looked good, man. Caicedo, Fernandez, Santos, Esugo, Lavia, wicked. That is now whittled all the way down to, as of right now, Lavia and Caicedo, essentially. And Lavia is another one we've got to be really, really careful with, because his injury keeps on flaring up. So it is a bit of a worry. I probably shouldn't do the Google MD thing when it comes to these injuries, but at the end of the day, it could be okay. It might just be a case of, if he does rest for the rest of the international break, it'd be okay. But it could be the symptoms of a potential longer term injury due to overuse, which is something that we've seen. And this is really difficult, isn't it? Because it's like, we spend all this money buying all these players in, and then we're like, now we're losing them all because of injury. And then what is the answer to that question? Do you go out and buy loads more players, or do you know what I mean? It is a really difficult situation. So look, as far as the Nottingham Forest game goes in itself, I wasn't totally convinced that Enzo Fernandez was going to play that anyway, because if he'd actually have played with Argentina, he'd have been on his international break until the 15th of October. That game was on the 18th of October. So chances are he might not have featured in that game anyway. So I guess if we look at it like that, he's got another few days to recover, potentially before the Ajax game. I think Andre Santos should be back for this game as well, the Nottingham Forest game. So we might see Santos or Lavia lining up alongside Moises Caicedo. Moises Caicedo, another midfielder that has been carrying something, but he's managed to play through it so far. But he has not gone on international duty alongside João Pedro, who have remained at the club to try and rest and fix their weary ailments. The midfield situation is just looking a bit dire at the moment. We are one more injury away from a crisis at this point, and it's scary to think that it could be Moises Caicedo. Caicedo has been, it's been a bit of a weird one. Like, there was the point before the Fulham game where he didn't train for the entire week and then played the Fulham game. He went on international duty last time, but missed at least one of those games, if not both of them, because he was potentially feeling something. But he came back and just played really, really well for us. That goal against Liverpool, do you know what I mean? So if he's playing through an injury, just imagine what he'd be like if he was fit. That's just going to be what it is. The Enzo Fernandez one, it could be worrying. We're gonna have to wait and see what happens with that. At the end of the day, we won't find out anything at least until closer to the Nottingham Forest game, I wouldn't have thought, unless it's a months-long injury, in which case, do you know what I mean, then we'll know. But yeah, so midfield depth, bit of an issue. What do you guys think about it, man? Do you think that January is the time to go and reinforce the midfield, or do we just kind of pray? Do we put our hands together and pray for everyone just to kind of come back? Because if all of our midfielders were available, our midfield would be wicked, do you know what I mean? But it's just getting a bit worrying at this point, isn't it? But moving on from injuries and midfielders, we're going to talk about centre-backs. So first off, we're going to talk about Axel Disasi, who has a potential exit route in the form of Borussia Dortmund to reunite with his old manager, Niko Kovac, because Niko Kovac was Disasi and Badiashiel's manager at Monaco. Disasi's been frozen out of the team. It doesn't look like he's going to come. Even with all of the issues we're having, do you know what I mean? It doesn't look like he's going to come back. After the international break, we are expecting to see Chalobah, Fofana, Achampong, all these guys should be coming back anyway. So there's not, when everyone is fit, there's definitely no room for him. And if we were to bring him back into the team, it would literally have just been to cover a couple of injuries, which is probably, I don't know, maybe it's not worth the dressing room drama. I'm not really sure, but he's been frozen out of the team. Disasi had, in the summer, a few offers from Premier League teams, man. We were unable to loan Disasi to any more European clubs because all of our international loan spots had been used up. The last one, obviously, going to Nicholas Jackson when he went to Bayern Munich. And he had offers from like Wolves, West Ham, Bournemouth, do you know what I mean? It's like all these teams are coming in for him and be like, we'll have you. And he was like, nah, want to go Europe. And it's like, brilliant. Okay, cool. So I struggle to have too much in the way of sympathy for Axel Disasi being in the bomb squad and sitting on the bench, because he had reasonable opportunities to be bought. Do you know what I mean? He could have been playing first team football for the first half of the season. He did essentially make that decision himself, because at the end of the day, like, we've got so many centre backs and we were trying obviously really hard to sell him. Maybe he thought he'd get reintegrated into the squad. I'm not sure. But like I say, I struggle to have sympathy for Disasi's particular situation right now, being that he actively turned down offers from West Ham, from Bournemouth, from Wolves. Do you know what I mean? From and that isn't to say that he couldn't have then gone to a European club again in the future. Even loans, I think, would have been possible, because the international loan spot is the only one that's that would take it up. I think we still could have loaned him to one of these teams, or it was a case of like, we wanted to, do you know what I mean? We wanted to make the money. We've done that before, haven't we? We're like, no, we either sell him or we keep him. So that seems to be the situation. The Borussia Dortmund links hold some sort of weight based on the fact that Niko Kovac knows him. They've, he obviously liked him at Dortmund. He had a good partnership with Badiashile at Monaco. Sorry. Also, we've done reasonable amount of business with Dortmund quite recently. Obviously, we sold them Carney Chukwuemeka. We've loaned them Aaron Anselmino, who also, unfortunately, has spent the majority of the season injured, by the way, after one stellar performance for them. And obviously, we bought Jamie Gittens from them for quite a lot of money as well. So there is a business relationship that exists between Dortmund and Chelsea, and I think I would have thought that would be one that Bluco are really keen to foster and stoke the flames of, because Dortmund are obviously really good at identifying young talent. So as pertaining to Dortmund's own centre-back situation, Schlotterbeck looks like he's going to potentially be on his way to Liverpool. Liverpool are having obviously their own defensive issues at the moment. And also Nicolas Süle this is the last year on his contract. So it looks like they could be without both of their centre-backs in the not too distant future. So, it does kind of make sense. Disasi, he'd probably do all right at Dortmund, I would have thought. Obviously, Kovac will probably appreciate the characteristics of Disasi that Enzo Maresca didn't particularly make use of, and he's got a bit of attitude and personality and stuff. Niko Kovac seems like he likes a player like that, doesn't he? So yeah, interesting one. And like I say, I think it has legs, man. I think it has legs. The Dortmund link is definitely there because of the Kovac stuff, and obviously we've done a lot of business with them recently. I don't think we'd get very much money for him. I think that's going to be the case wherever he goes now, especially being that he's not playing at all, and maybe that was in his head part of the thing. He's like, well, I'll just drive my value down by not playing for a while, but I know someone will still pick me up. So we'll have to see what happens, but I don't hate the idea. It will be in the summer. It won't be in January, because their centre-back situation is probably not going to need addressing until the summer. So we'll have to see what happens with Disasi in January. If he spends the whole season in the bomb squad on the bench, well, not even on the bench, I mean, just literally like training on his own, that could change things a little bit. So hopefully we can get him out on a loan in January to a Premier League club. Maybe one of Bournemouth, West Ham or Wolves are still interested in having him for the second half of the season. We will have to see, but let me know what you think about it, guys. Disasi to Dortmund. Maybe they can save us from the disaster that we've been going through with him. And because it's the international break, generally the news is slow. But what I have found today on the BBC, on their sport part of their website, Nazar Kinsella, Chelsea reporter, has done an interview specifically with a gentleman called... So Nazar Kinsella has done an interview with a gentleman called Tim. I cannot find his second name anywhere on the article, but Tim from the BBC has interviewed Nazar Kinsella, and he is asking quite candid and direct questions, which I always appreciate from a reporter, about Marc Guehi and the goalkeeper situation, right? So I am going to do something that I don't usually do in these videos. We are going to read through the interview together, and then we will react to it as we go. See how that goes for us. So I will start with Tim. Tim asked the first question that is pertaining to Marc Guehi, and Tim asked, why do you think there is no noise about us going back for Marc Guehi? Surely it makes perfect sense to try and get him in January given the ongoing injury problems we have at the back. That was essentially the question that all of us were asking when Levi Colwill got injured, right? And when Liverpool were being linked with Marc Guehi for £35 million, it was like, why are we not getting in on that? He continues the question with, there seems to be such reluctance from the board to actually buy the players we need, but yet have absolutely no qualms about spending big money on attackers like Jamie Gittins, etc. So I like Tim. I like Tim for this directness of this question. At the end of the day, Nazar doesn't work for Chelsea. Do you know what I mean? He's not an official club correspondent kind of thing, but he is a Chelsea reporter with links to the club. So it's interesting to find out what he's got to say about it. In response to Tim's question, Nazar answered, all bets are off after Liverpool's deadline day move collapsed. Every top club in Europe is likely to try their luck with Guehi, who has less than a year left on his Crystal Palace deal. We know the hierarchy at Chelsea is aware of his qualities. However, I doubt injuries will factor in at this stage, given Trevor Chalobah, Wesley Fofana and Tosin Adarabioyo are due back after the international break. Fair point. The only issue, the only counter I've got to that at the moment is the injury situation is rife, man. Do you know what I mean? It's absolutely rife. Tosin has been injured a couple of times already this season. Badiashile and Achiampong sat down in the last game against Liverpool when we ended with four fullbacks on the pitch. Do you know what I mean? So yes, we do have a lot of centre backs, but it seems like everyone is a little bit. At the end of the day, I guess Guehi's not exactly immune from injury issues either, is he? He's had a couple of injury issues himself. Nazar continues, it would be a case of whether Chelsea's project appeals to Guehi, if they make an offer, and whether he is the profile needed compared with others already on the books. I am not expecting to hear anything on this soon. Chelsea explored signing defenders before Levi Colwill's injury in the summer, most notably Dean Howson, but were happy to just add Joro Hato from Ajax with a view to giving academy graduate Josh Achiampong further chances. They also have young players coming through, including Mamadou Sarr and Aaron Anselmino, who is currently on loan at Dortmund, and their future pathways also being factored in. Interesting, he mentioned Mamadou Sarr. Because he played a little bit in the Club World Cup, didn't he? And apparently is very well thought of, and he was loaned straight back to Strasbourg. So that seemed to be an exercise in getting some money into Strasbourg's coffers to allow them to further boost their squad. But at the end of the day, it was the right thing to do because he's playing every match there. Do you know what I mean? And he's really, really trusted by Rosenior, the manager. So that 100% is, does kind of make sense. Aaron Anselmino went to Dortmund and had one wicked game and looked amazing in this one brilliant game and has been injured ever since. Another injury-prone centre-back that we've got on our books now. Fantastic. So, yeah, I mean, I do kind of get it to an extent. I mean, Hato was never really... I know Hato has played centre-back for us, but it's not really what he was bought for. He only played centre-back 6 times for Ajax. So it's not like that's his position. He's played it okay for us recently, but it's not ideal. His role is ostensibly to be the backup for Marco Correa because we don't have anyone else to play that role. But yeah, at the end of the day, although I appreciate the candid, direct nature of the question from Tim, Nazar has essentially just given us a big puff of nothing when it comes down to it. Essentially saying that it's going to be Guehi's choice about whether Chelsea is appealing to him or not. Lots of clubs are going to be in for Guehi because, he's going to be so cheap. I would be surprised if he stayed, to be completely honest, after January, just because so many clubs will be willing to pay a little bit of money to get a centre-back of that quality on their books, even if it's technically over what he's going to be worth because of his contract situation. So, not a huge amount to glean from that other than we've got loads of centre-backs, which is, essentially what the club said already. So, Tim's second question, much, much shorter. Are Chelsea looking for a new goalkeeper in January? Ooh, this is the one that we all want to know, isn't it? Nizar answered, Chelsea have money to spend in January, but are currently happy with their squad and would only sign a player capable of taking the club to the next level. They explored a potential market opportunity to sign Mike Maignan, but saw AC Milan's £25 million price as too high for a player with a year left on his contract and walked away. Of course, that price will probably come down in January, but the Blues are broadly happy with the form of Robert Sanchez, who won the Golden Glove at the Club World Cup and are not expected to return to the market. Youngster Mike Penders is also at the club, with his future chances another factor to consider. So, that's kind of what I expected, man. There's been a lot of news recently about Mike Maignan and Juventus and Bayern Munich, and we're not going to get in a bidding war for him. Do you know what I mean? We weren't willing to overpay for him before. If there's some sort of bidding war that comes in for Mike Maignan, and it's just a case of it's just not going to happen, is it? It's just not going to happen. And the other thing about that, the Mike Maignan thing, I talked about this on the Blue Lounge last night. I was like, if we do sign Mike Maignan for next season, then that's going to put Sanchez's nose out of joint for the rest of this season, isn't it? Because he knows his chance is definitely not going to be there. The conversation being had around Mike Penders at the moment is potentially him being brought back to fight for the number one spot. Do you know what I mean? Which isn't what Philip Jorgensen is doing. Philip Jorgensen is just the number two because he's been deemed as not being good enough to fight for that number one spot. But if Mike Penders comes back, he can fight for the number one spot. If you bring in Maignan, he's going to get the number one. And Mike Penders is probably still going to come back and fight for the number one spot. So that kind of definitely pushes Sanchez out, doesn't it? But if it's just a case of Mike Penders coming back next season to fight with Sanchez for the number one, then Sanchez in his head, even though I don't really think this is the case, in his head, he could still justify maybe he's still got a bit of a chance. So again, just a bit more kind of what we already knew, I guess, with this one. But I think, we talked about it on Blue Lounge last night, and I agree with Kai from behind the dugouts. I think the deal's dead, man. I think the deal's dead. I don't think Mike Maignan is enough of an upgrade on Robert Sanchez in order to go out and spend more money than necessary on him. And also, I think if the likes of Juventus and, well, maybe a bit less so Juventus, but if Bayern Munich come in for him, what an opportunity that is. Would you like to be the successor to Neuer and play football for the next decade as long as you're good enough? Like, yeah, do you know what I mean? It's a good opportunity, man. Vincent Kompany's doing a really, really good job at building the squad over there. Bayern Munich definitely an opportunity, and we don't want to get into a bidding war with Bayern Munich over a 30-year-old goalkeeper. Do you know what I mean? And I do back Penders to come in. He's playing every single game in Strasbourg at the moment. Liam Rosini's doing a really good job. They were like 5th last time I checked in the table, man. I'm not sure if that's changed. I mean, I think that was before the international break. But at the end of the day, again, they're knocking on the door of Champions League football in France, and that is with their team being gutted and again refilled with young ex-Chelsea or current Chelsea talent. So something really good is going on there, and if Mike Penders can be part of that, and especially if they can get into the Champions League next season, that's a whole nother thing with the two clubs in the Champions League thing. But just as far as Penders goes, I think that would be a really good opportunity for him, man. So it's something that I wouldn't hate to see. So that's it, guys. I'm going to wrap the video up there. Thank you for sticking around until the end. If you did, let me know what you think about all of today's topics. Enzo Fernandez being injured. Like I say, I didn't think he was going to play for the Nottingham Forest game anyway. So let me know what you think about that. Does anyone know anything about synovitis and whether Fernandez's injury could be more long-term? Active Disasi to Dortmund. I think that's just a good thing. It's probably not going to be until the summer, but either way, he wanted to go back out into Europe. He's played for Niko Kovac before. It makes sense, and I backed that one. And Nazar Kinsella's interview basically saying, by the sounds of it, Guehi's just not really a thing because we've got loads of centre-backs already. And the goalkeeper thing, Mike Maignan's probably also dead in the water. So are you comfortable going forward for the rest of this season with the centre-backs that we've got and with Robert Sanchez in goal? Let me know what you think in the comments. Nice one, guys. I hope you're all having an absolutely wicked day. I'll catch up with you very, very soon. Take it easy. Peace.